It's so great to see that you're all back. I'm very honored to speak on the stage where Leah is standing all the time, where Miriam was standing before. And I hope to inform you just as well with the following slides. So as Leah introduced, I want to talk about advertising. And I want to start with a question. So my question for you is, do you like ads? I'm not sure if that was a yay or nay, but you can all think for yourself what your feelings are. Maybe you haven't even thought about it that much, because to be honest, usually advertising is something that we kind of like try to ignore, or it's somewhere at the sides, or it's definitely not where our focus is, unless we work in advertising. So when I think about ads, there definitely are some ads that are funny, like this one from Spotify, where I saw it, I was smiling, I was like, yeah, good one, good point. And there are definitely also ads that are useful, so I'm not getting tired to talk about these amazing bike bags. Mine is somewhere in the wardrobe, probably. But I would never have found them if it wouldn't have been for an Insta ad. So sometimes ads are useful. But very often, ads are just plain annoying. Something is popping up on your screen, on your smartphone, and you don't know why this game should be interesting for you, and you have to search for that little X. Where is it? Where can I get this away? So yeah, not very useful, not very funny. And then there's ads that are really annoying. You want to watch something on YouTube, a video you've picked out, and then it says, well, your video is starting after an ad. And sometimes you have to watch just a few seconds and you can skip. Sometimes you have to watch for 30 seconds before you can see the content you actually came for. And boom, 30 seconds of your life are gone. So I would consider that quite annoying. But of course, there's a reason why we have ads on the internet. So I want to look with you on the reasons for ads. So who benefits from ads? Why are there ads? Of course, there's also ads offline, but especially on the internet. So this is from one of a large German publication. If you go to their websites, they ask you, well, please also see our ads, because we know you came for the content and not for the ads. But actually, the ads are what pays our people, what pays our staff. And of course, we're all educated humans. We know that journalists especially should make a living, should be paid well, so of course we're willing to accept that. And that's really how we think, or how most people think, that advertising works. We want to consume content. We're used to getting this content basically for free. That's a huge problem, as I will later explain. But so yeah, we want to go to a website, we want to read, we want to see what's on the site. And of course, the site wants to pay their people and all the other things they need to run their business. So advertising comes in as sort of a middleman. It pays the website, it gives them money, and it hopes that later, someday, we will give them money by buying their products. So 3 stakeholders, quite an easy diagram. Should be easy. In fact, it's a little more complicated. There's not 3 parties involved. There's probably more than like 3,000 involved in every single ad you see online. So there's a whole industry that wants to make money from putting ads online. And only a fraction of them has to do with either the publishing website that you're going to, or even the ad itself, like the image of the ad, the creative idea, or the product. The biggest part of all these companies that you see on the slide, or can probably not see so well, but you get an idea how many there are, the biggest share of them are data collectors, data brokers, data sellers, data buyers, data aggregators, analysts. So data is a big, big part in the ad tech industry. And what data are we talking about? Obviously, personal data, because that's what's most valuable. So data about you as a user surfing the web. Why do they need so much data? Why can't they just put an ad there of a soft drink, a computer, a new car? I don't know. Well, they want data to make ads presumably better for you, to target them better to you, to send you that specific ad for that soft drink that you really right now are looking for, or the perfect vacation you're planning already. What are the outcomes for that? How is this affecting all of us as individuals? Was it a question? I don't think so. OK, so let's take a little bit deep look into the tech behind. If you go to a website in Europe, you're all very used to having these cookie notifications, these little banners that say, like, hey, please accept these cookies. And I would bet 99% of us just click OK. Whoever has actually read what is behind the privacy declaration on a website? That's quite some hands. Who's doing that for every single time they click OK on a cookie banner? Yeah, I thought so. Cookies sound so sweet and innocent, but really they aren't, or at least they're not necessarily. Cookies collect a lot of information about you. So starting with the simple stuff, they know what kind of device you're using, computer, laptop, tablet. They know what browser you're using. They also get useful information, like the language you're browsing in. And we could all understand, OK, that helps. But they can collect way more information. For example, through advertising banners, these cookies can collect a lot of information about your age, your gender, where you are. They can even give a pretty good estimation about your household income, because that's relevant to advertisers. They want to know, can they send you an iPhone ad or rather one for like a cheaper phone? So all that information is collected. And of course, they also know not just what you're doing on this very site, but also the 10 sites you've seen before, the searches you made, the purchases, the things you almost but didn't buy in the end. So all this information is collected through cookies and similar technology, like Facebook Pixel. And this data is not just collected in one place. It's not just going to the one website that you give consent. But actually, this website shares it with all these data brokers, analysts, retargeting agencies, so on. So this is one of these consent informations that we all agree on 100 times a day, but rarely read. So this is just one very average website. And it already says that they can share your data with dozens of third parties. And then these third parties share it again with dozens of third parties. So you can basically say, whatever one cookie knows, the whole internet knows about you. Not the most comforting thought. But maybe you think, like, well, OK, it's just like my computer. I have nothing to hide. I'm not doing anything illegal, etc. So if you still feel comfortable, wait. What is this data used for? Like I said, this data is used to target. So it's used to send ads that are then not just catered to like the readers of this website, but to a female reader in their 30s with a high household income from an urban area. So what we end up with, ads becoming more and more cliché, like reinforcing stereotypes that we as a society are or most of us are hoping to overcome. Now you could say, well, clichés and advertising, we have that. We have that on TV, we have it in magazines, it's everywhere. True, totally agree, still don't like it. And it's really becoming worse online, because in a magazine, at least you have this like one group of readers of this magazine, and you have to decide what you print. Online, I can send you, and you all the different ads, presumably catered to your very personal needs, or at least based on the private data I know about you. And while that might be stupid, it might not be the worst. But targeting advertising also allows such things. A private company called Cambridge Analytica, I think most of you have heard of them by now, putting manipulative ads out, targeting a very specific demographic. Most likely, this ad showed up on a Facebook feed of a British woman in her 20s with dark skin color. So they're putting out very manipulative ads about political decisions, though they're neither a politician nor a political party. but targeted advertising allows for all this to happen. It gets better. There's this technology called Geo Targeting. So I can not only send an ad to you because you're a woman in your 30s in Berlin. I can send an ad to women in their 20s or 30s sitting in this location that is like narrowed down by meters. So what happened in this case is anti-choice organizations sent anti-abortion ads to women sitting in the waiting rooms of a family planning center. To be honest, I think that's just disgusting. They were banned eventually, but of course the technology is there, so people are using it. This is also a not so nice example of what happens with ad tech. So Facebook even promoted this to advertisers, that they're now able to specifically target teenagers that are physically unstable, that are maybe mentally not as healthy as they could be, that are vulnerable. Why? Well, because if you ever heard something about marketing, you know that people who feel insecure and are vulnerable are likely to spend more money if you just tell them, oh, this will make you happy, just buy. At this point, me as a citizen, me as a mom, I really would not want this to happen to me, to my children, to anyone around me. But let's not get too upset. Let's maybe take half a step back and look how advertising affects the internet as a whole. So there we also have a lot of phenomena brought up by advertising, by this focus on making money. This is far less dramatic than selling stuff to vulnerable teenagers, but it can also be at least a little bit annoying. So on the internet, all of a sudden, everything turns into a slideshow. You wonder, can't they just put an article about these fantastic women in tech? Why do I have to click and click and click again to go through this list? I will tell you why in a second. Another internet phenomenon, Listicles. So 101 articles you really don't need to read, but maybe still do, because our brain is just wired to think like, ooh, I should check this out. Like, what's these like 10 points? Just let me quickly look at it. One step up is what has become known as clickbait. So crazy, mostly photoshopped images and the accompanying crazy headlines that just appeal to a very lowest instinct to like, oh really, like what's going on there? Like, if we think about it, we probably know it's not necessarily the most relevant information and probably not even true, but sometimes we still click. And while this is just, hilarious and unnecessary non-information, it of course gets worse again when you look at fake news. So similar mechanics, putting out something where you think like, really? And you feel like you want to look at it even if it might not be true. But then a lot of people might think it's true, or at least might doubt what is considered to be actual science and facts. So this post about climate change as a hoax, as a conspiracy against taxpayers was shared on Breitbart UK, one of the infamous non-news sites. And it was shared over 17,000 times on Facebook when the screenshot was being taken, probably more, unfortunately. And then similarly disgusting is hate speech shitstorms happening on every social media platform every single day. So these are just some outtakes from a recent court case from a German politician, a female politician, who had to endure a lot of slander on her site. And the platforms are very slow in taking it down, though there even is now legislation. Very often they refer to this freedom of speech and just let this hateful content stand there, poisoning our communities. Why, you would think? And if we remember the last talk about these very tight-knit very friendly communities in the very, very early days of the internet and network technologies, we really wonder, like, how did we end up here? Well, I want to show you a very simple equation that answers the question, why did we end up here? And also answers the question, why is everything a slideshow? Answers the question, why don't they delete hate speech? Because the more sensationalist, the more crass, the more drastic a piece of content is, the more people look at it, the more people view it, the more impressions this website gets. And the more impressions they get, they also get more impressions for the ads that are right, left, top, down, sometimes even above that content. And of course, the more ads means the more money. So this actually means that platforms like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook have an incentive to keep lies, to keep extremist views, to keep hate speech on their platform because they make money. Because people, unfortunately, rather click on a scandal than on a piece of factful information from a maybe boring but professional journalist. So right now, this is the business model of the majority of the web. Most websites, most content is ad-financed, and I think that is a huge problem. Because it shouldn't work that way, right? It should be the best quality creates the best incentive. And right now, that's just not the case. And there's more and more science proving that. So people who look at the algorithms, who actually research how crisis management at big platforms is done, they support this. They find proof that they're actually not trying to minimize scandals, to cut down shitstorms when they are in the very early stages, but that they are trying to exploit it to make as much money out of it possible until it gets really against the law, and then they have to take it down. This is a report from somebody who worked at YouTube, who worked on the algorithm that recommends you the next video, who confessed that this really got out of hand. And nowadays, YouTube is working in a way that it promotes you very easily into more and more extremist content, more and more extremist videos. So no matter what you start with, if you look at information about women in tech, or if you look about information about the Muslim religion, or anything, very easily, within a few videos, you end up with really extreme, radical content pieces, videos that you probably wouldn't have looked up yourself, but the algorithm feeds exactly that. It's kind of like a drug addiction. You always get a stronger and stronger impulse to keep you hooked, because if you stay on the site, they also get more ad impressions. There's a lot of talk about social media addiction and teenagers being smartphone addicted and all that. We shouldn't blame ourselves or the kids. We should really blame these corporations, because they're designing their sites, their networks in a way to make us addicted. So are you all depressed now? I don't want to leave you depressed. I want to give you a little bit of advice what you can do, what we all should do to try to push back against this unhealthy internet business model. And obviously, number one is, if you don't have, go and install an ad blocker, because that just cuts down most of these ads. It protects you from tracking. Most ad blockers have an option to also deactivate tracking. That happens 99% through ads, but also through other ways. It will make your online experience so much more relaxed, more calm, you will own it more, because you will look at the things you want to look and not at all that blinking banners that want to sell you stuff that you really don't need, right? Okay, but that's not the only thing you can do. What I also really would urge all of you to do is turn off notifications. Unless they are definitely from human people, Like, of course I want to get a notification if Leah sends me a direct message. But I don't want to get a notification if somebody else has liked something or from someone else, and you should really go on Twitter again and check it out and maybe also see some ads. So again, notifications are designed in a way, this red warning label, we're wired to see this like, ooh, alert, need to check it out. No, you really don't have to. Thirdly, if we cut ads, then of course we're also cutting funding from sites. So wherever you can, start paying for what you're consuming, please. I think it's one of the birth defects of the internet that we got so used to getting everything for free. There's a saying, if you're not paying, then you're the product, right? And I don't want all of your personal data to become freely available on the internet. So start paying, because that's really the most powerful way to reverse this business model. Because I don't think most news sites really want all these like negative effects of advertising. They want to produce good news. They want to support our democracy, I would even say, at least most of them. And even cat videos. Like if you want to watch cat videos, then like send this person making these cute videos a few cents so they can get a new coffee or whatever. But cut away this dependency on advertising. Of course, I know money is a scarce resource, and we all don't have money to waste. But there's a lot of examples that small amounts actually really make a difference, and our willingness to pay is what changes the business model in the internet. I want to close with browse mindfully, because, again, even I just mostly click OK on these cookie warnings, but at least I don't feel so good when I do. Because I know what's happening, right? And I think this is the most important part. We can only own our internet, our online experience, if we know what's going on. If we think a cookie is just something techie we don't need to care about, if we think an ad is just a picture of some product, then we cannot own this experience because we don't know what's actually going on, what's happening to us. And I think we all should. So these are my 4 tips for digital self-defense. And now I'm very happy to start into a quick discussion with all of you.
Thank you so much. Laura, I want to actually start with the last point that, actually, no, sorry, point number 3, paying for content. Because actually I was following Twitter and many people have been commenting, and one actually brought up the point that, of course, you know, we as Ada, for example, we're a publishing house, of course, partly ads for many of us here do pay for, you know, for our colleagues and for the work that we do. So you said change the model, and what else is there to do other than just saying we'll basically, you know, cut that profit for very worthy work, and not just journalists, many other employees, obviously. Do you think there's only the solution of a completely systemic change, of changing the entire model? What can users do if they do want to support?
As much as I'm in favor of black and white, the world isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray in between. For example, there are ad formats that don't rely on having so much data. Nowadays, they're called brand campaigns or native advertising. That is ads that is, or advertising that is at least hopefully partially useful, but doesn't rely on selling and collecting all that private data. So I think that's a model that I luckily see growing with a lot of publishing sites, and that's also one that works really well for consumers. By the way, ad blockers are not blocking these kinds of ads. Yeah, so that's one of the ways. But then I also think, of course, if like payment is a two-way street, right? I need to have like an offer I can accept. If the digital subscription to a news site is like the same price as a paper newspaper, that's just not realistic. So I'm very happy that more and more news sites put up either like paper article things where it's really easy, where you don't have to go through 10 steps, but can easily just say like, okay, I'm paying like $1 or €1 for that piece.
Mm-hmm. And basically what you talked about in terms of the attention-grabbing nature of the ads, of some of the really horrific examples, that is, I would say, an example of the sort of attention capitalism that we have on the internet, right? What do you do personally to sort of reclaim your time? You said you turn off your notifications. What exactly do you mean by browse mindfully? How do you reclaim your time? Because this is huge. I mean, we all spend hours, we have seen the numbers, hours on these sites. Yeah. For some reason, we are still grabbed by them. What else do you do to actually own your time?
I really try to frequently check back in, do I really want to scroll even further on my Instagram feed, or am I just killing time or keeping myself from sleeping? Yeah, so really having that in the back of my mind, am I doing what I want to do, or am I already getting trapped again? And then there's of course more smaller things, and if you go online, you find a lot of very useful tips. One is deactivate autoplay on YouTube. I think it's such a huge time saver. If not, the next thing is automatically starting, but you have to make a conscious decision, do I want to see more or not? Yeah.
Let's open it up to the audience first. I do have a few more, but yes, as a gentleman in the second seated row from the back.
Thanks a lot. On one hand, I completely agree with what you criticized with the advertisement industry, but could you maybe be a little bit more specific on what eyeo is doing? As far as I understand, some big companies can pay you so they do not get blocked, so you make money with that, and all of the small companies, they get blocked, and their business model does not work anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question and giving me the opportunity to clean up some myths, because unfortunately, again, scandalous reporting spreads more than the facts. Actually, on our website, it's very well explained what we do. So yes, we also, my salary is also paid by advertising, which sometimes makes me feel semi-uncomfortable. But we have a very strict list of criteria what ads we do not block. It's smaller ads, it's ads that can only take up a small percentage of the screen, it's ads that cannot interrupt what you're doing, so definitely never a pre-roll video on YouTube. And these criteria are the same for small and big companies. Actually, for small companies, and small we define as less than 100,000 impressions per month, so most German newspapers even fall in that category, are getting whitelisted for free, and some of the bigger ones, they are paying for that whitelisting. So it's definitely a very, very strict. I sometimes compare to the TÜV, right? Everyone in Germany knows the TÜV. If you want to get the TÜV siegel, you also have to pay for that quality assurance and approval. And if you want to get our stamp that your ad is okay, is not super annoying, then if you're a large company, you also have to pay a little bit. And I'm very happy to go in further detail, either in our workshop or in our mentoring session later.
Also, for the non-Germans, the TÜV is basically the automotive regulator, so that's about...
Not just, it's the technical surveillance institute.
Right. Oh.
So it does everything, cars, elevators, even websites.
True.
But yeah, quality insurance.
Any more questions for Laura on the big stage before she, yes, in the second row, third.
One question regarding data, because of course being a marketeer, I love good ads, but the question is, doesn't data also enable getting better ads, which are interesting for me, instead of getting, for me, a kicker ad or something like that, which I would be interested?
I personally do not believe that, to be honest. There is this myth of if you just have enough data, you can get the right ad on the right channel to the right person. I so rarely see ads that are really fitting. The bike bag being one good example of that happening. And they probably know that I bike a lot. But in generally, I think the downsides that come with collecting all this data are so much heavier and worse than the chance of getting that perfect ad to the perfect user. And I really would very much want to see the advertising industry going back a little bit to becoming more creative, to using that to get people interested instead of following them and stalking them. And I mean, retargeting for me is a fantastic example, because I don't know, you get a link from your sister, what do you think about this dress? And I was like, oh God, this really looks shitty. But still, this dress then follows me for the next 5 days because I once clicked on it. So that happens because they collect the data, but it's completely irrelevant to me. Or the flight that you just booked, and then you get ads for the same flights for 10 days. And like, I really don't want to fly twice at the same day. So yeah, I don't think that data is the big solution here.
Let's take one more question. Any more audience? Yes, in the back at the standing tables in the middle, with the red top. She is making herself.
Hi, maybe just for your information or for your developer team, I just tried to download your product and it crashed my phone.
Ooh. My product, we don't have.
I went on your site for the ad blocker, the product you promote on your website.
We'll have a look at that in the mentoring session. I will definitely forward that if there is something wrong.
So one phone has been crashed, one down, 600 to go. Any more or not? Any more questions? Yes, we'll take.
Okay, thanks for the talk. Let's agree on the fact that there are tremendous downsides. Normally, we would all call for government and law and say, help us out. If we can do it individually, of course, that's a good idea, but maybe we need some backup from law and in government. What would you say can we do? And international companies and all that stuff. What can government actually do to help us?
You're a politician yourself.
I actually think that the GDPR, so General Data Protection Regulation that the EU passed last year, was a huge step forward. Unfortunately, how it has been turned into reality is suboptimal, I think, right now, because thanks to the GDPR, we have all these cookie layovers, and now there's even a new court decision that says just clicking OK isn't actually giving consent, so probably soon we have to click on a checkbox and then click OK, which I think that's not helping protect our data, right? It's just annoying us. But I think with the GDPR, at least politicians have made an effort on starting to give us more ownership on our data. So it's probably really hard from a law perspective to regulate how a website should look like, how is the cookie effect. But I think this is the basis, and I know that there's a lot of interesting developments for example, some browser companies are working on something where you do not have to give consent to every single website, but you can set in your browser, okay, like this, I'm accepting these kind of cookies, this kind of data I'm willing to share or not, so that then the browser can make these decisions on all the website and you don't always have to click OK or not. So, but these developments wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have the regulation. So I'm totally a fan of regulation, and I think the internet can use a little bit more to become more targeted towards really nourishing and enhancing our communities.
If you want to learn more about Laura's work, either in politics or for eyeo, or if you want to debate her on it and disagree with her and discuss it, she will have a mentoring session in the living room later as well. Please give a round of applause to Laura Dornheim. Thank you. Thank you.